would like to speak to you about, surprise, beyond the ordinary people. I have in mind a project manager, a construction site worker, a craftsman, dissector of bodies. Actually, I'm going to speak about artists. There we are. I think most of you will agree that artists are extraordinary people. But the profession mentioned are activities of two men that dedicated their entire life to art. So, speaking about art and artists is of course a wide field. One can always find this or that artist that failed or who had success by random chance, as can happen to any other profession. What I want to share with you from the outset is something that can be applied to any other profession too. And it has to do with self-esteem, no matter where you are a top manager or your profession is a cleaning lady. So, think back into your childhood. What was it what you wanted to be? I'm sure some of you said, yeah, I want to become a key relationship manager. For example, I wanted to be an artist, a singer or a painter. But already after school, I decided not to study art, but art history. And since then, I had very many other professions, a writer, a teacher, a fundraiser, event manager. And now I'm mostly a PR manager. And this is what we experience. We start somewhere, and the career path leads us to different branches, to very different business situations, job situations that we had never thought possible. In my generation, when we grew up, when we were students, we had a certain feeling of certainty that we would have a job and that this job would remain for the duration, and that this job will be emotionally rewarding. But today's future is very different. Must we talk about satisfaction in professional life? This isn't that new, you could say, but if there is something that has really gone bad in the economic miracle land Germany, wonderland Germany, then it's the identification with their work. Look at this. The Gallup Engagement Index is a study that measures, since 2001, the emotional loyalty of employees for the work to their employer. And it hasn't changed so much. 70% are pushing only the service according to their instructions. And another 15% have completely terminated. So this equals 85% of the whole workforce. Means 28 million people. So the damage of the German economy is estimated to be up around 100 billion euros a year. Isn't that amazing? What if 28 million people would identify more with their work? And it's just a rhetorical question. Should we just get our jobs done? Or should we try to bring forward new things, new ideas, new services? And why talking about artists, you may ask? Aren't these the chaotic ones, poor, wretched beings, dreamers? Aren't these who don't understand anything about work, about organization, about management? Yeah, sure, there are some of these. There are crazy people, as in any other profession too. And we like gossip much more than the boring stories of hardworking people. Yeah. And I won't talk about the smart managers who failed, who lost money, even not their own funds, and brought tremendous difficulties into their organizations. So, start with the successful people, and I will talk to you about 2 successful artists and what we can learn from them. I start with the most famous artist of all time. Michelangelo Buonarroti was considered at his time, like every artist, a craftsman. You did an apprenticeship and you learned from a proper professional. He was an apprentice of a fresco painter, Ghirlandaio, but then became a sculptor and went to Rome. There, he delivered some high-profile work and showed a promising talent. Then he got a job with the Pope. He ordered a huge tomb for himself, and Michelangelo would have taken the rest of his lifetime to complete. At this point, the story sounds like a happy ending, but the stories and the things turned out differently, much differently. So, in 1508, the Pope calls Michelangelo and tells him that he will withdraw the order of the tomb. And he instead asked Michelangelo to paint the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel with a blue sky and stars and 12 apostles. Also below, there were already the paintings of the famous at the time. The whole construction, especially the vault, was not a very beautiful construction. A cow barn ceiling, they said, for the vault. And Michelangelo, yes, he was a fresco painter, but he was not very experienced, as it was not his favorite. And the cathedral architect Bramante knew this, and it is believed that, that Bramante wanted to see Michelangelo fail. So Michelangelo protests, for he is actually a sculptor, but the Pope wouldn't accept a no for the answer. So the situation is a suicide mission. Michelangelo gets his best and only order withdrawn. The customer wants something else, and the customer is not only king, but Pope too. And it's an order for which he is not a specialist. Michelangelo must measure up with the most famous at his time who painted the paintings below. And among them, there is his former teacher, Ghirlandaio. And finally, just two doors down the hall, there is this new star, Raphael. Popular, beautiful, and very successful, working also on frescoes. So the situation was exasperating. It couldn't get any worse than that. So, the facts: 1,100 square meters, 40 by 13 meters, 20 meters height. A barrel wall means a curved surface with these strange 3-corner windows. And so here is what follows. Michelangelo ran away, but he came back. And he rethinks the job and decides that the result of the default planning would be only a cosa povera, a poor thing. And now he appears to have gone crazy. He presents to the Pope his own design that is much more complex and demanding. Instead of a few figures and a blue sky, he presents an entire theological program with the creation and all figures that had to do with the coming of Jesus Christ. And it seems to be a miracle, or maybe impotence wins. The Pope agrees. So, this is what happened. In 4 years, Michelangelo created the entire ceiling, and in the end, he managed it practically alone. The cow barn ceiling gets its own architecture, because where there is no architecture, Michelangelo creates one painting. This offers him the possibility to show different spaces, different perspectives, and a variety of light and color. We see 400 more than larger figures vibrant bodies of any stature, naked, beautiful, and it's like an encyclopedia of the human form. A stroke of a genius. But let me show something that will wow you. The creation of Adam is the most well-known picture in the world. On one hand, you see Adam, not yet given life, therefore he still feeble stands. On the other side, God, under his arm, Eve, ready for the bestowal of the divine spark. This composition explains why Michelangelo subsequently was called the divine. It's so great, it's so beautiful, it's so perfect. Not only he shows the old Greek idea of the absolute moment where the past and the future are perceptible at the same moment, but recently something became clear that had long remained unnoticed. The medical illustrator Jan Suk and the neurosurgeon Rafael Tamargo of the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, Baltimore, show how Michelangelo diagrams brain in the Sistine Chapel, human brainstem in the image of God. Suk and Tamargo write, Michelangelo possibly dissected the brain and spinal cord, and that over the years he probably acquired a sophisticated understanding of gross neuroanatomy. So God is brain and Adam is the body. The creation and the brain inspires the body, gives him life, gives him energy. So the creation of Adam has thus become a symbol for man who grows from and beyond his physical existence. So, Sistina, what's the message? Michelangelo could have rejected the assignment and continued his career as a sculptor. But he had exactly the three qualities which I'm focusing on today. First, he accepted the challenge because he had a professional pride. Let's call it craftsman's honor. Second, he had what at Renaissance time was called virtue. An unconditional awareness of quality means a disposition of mind for good and the absolute willingness to give his best. And finally, the passion for what he does make him persevere. He was adamant in his persistence. No dampness, no mold could stop him. No opposing conditions, because he wanted to deliver. So you say, 400 years ago, genius, the only one. Now let's look at something more current. His name is Arne Kinse. He's a Belgian artist, well known to the Germans as ex-husband of Barbara Becker. But the jet set life was not given to him. His parents were divorced when he was 9. At the age of 15, he left home and lived 2 years on the road. At some point, he was interested in art and he took courses at the Academy of Fine Arts in Brussels. From the street life, he absorbed graffiti art and he absorbed it for being an installation artist. Now, his sculptures and even the paintings, you can find them in the most prominent galleries and museums, and his projects are shown around the world. The project that I will illustrate is called Camille and is a wooden installation sculpture in Rouen, France. In 2010, the city of Rouen decides to organize a festival of contemporary art and invites Arne Kinse to take part. The project Camille was born and realized on the Beaulieu Bridge, that is a most central area of the town of Rouen. The bridge, no less than 40% of all traffic makes use of it. Arne Kinze decided himself and insisted that the sculpture should be on this bridge because he immediately knew that he wanted to create a place where people of both sides of the river could meet. He wanted to place a gigantic construction. So, during the festival, a pedestrian area was created, and indeed, the people came from both sides, they met, they had a hall, they talked together under the wooden installation. No less than 2 million visitors came to see Camille in Rouen, and during this festival, the inhabitants of Rouen started a petition not to tear down the construction. That was indeed the real proof that Camille had an effect on people's lives. So, the facts. The bridge was 120 meters long, between 2 and 6 meters, 20 meters high. It consisted of 11,000 parts, each between 2 and 9 meters. If they have connected, they would have been 45 kilometers long. The weight was 160 tons and stood on 20 pillars, and it could withstand a wind speed of 300 kilometers per hour. The bridge sculpture was constructed in 2 months, stood for a 2-month exhibition, and was removed just in 1 day. You can imagine how many people had to work on it. Only 10 permanent staff, but in each phase, 80 people. So, Arne Kinze, what's the message? Again, this. Art can be a real adventure. Imagine the months and years to prepare to plan this. Countless permits have to be sought, negotiations, discussions with the citizen, with the city managers, with the cultural managers, and many more. Arne could have made a small sculpture, something to look at and to go around. But no, it had to become a gigantic construction that not only shows what is possible aesthetically, but also socially. Talking again about the job world, what has this to do with the future? We seem to have accepted that the external world is dictating our future. Technologies, constraints, necessity. But no, it still depends on us. And if we don't bring something into existence, then nothing happens. And this is the plea for the future competence, that of commitment and some eternal virtues. In the future, I see 2 trends. A new time for adventures of the brain. As we all know, material markets are increasingly saturated and intangible products are almost infinite. And that means what is needed is brain power. Think of the speed with which social media has evolved. There has never been a time so wide open, so greenfield. And second, new time for quality. Less and better is more. There's a clear trend towards high quality, simplicity, and purism. And so another time for Germany's core competences. Germany has never been the poster boy of mass production. We live by high quality projects, ideas, and inventions. They come from people who dare to invent it, who dare to promote it, and to dare to collaborate with it. In summary, what I found out studying art history all my life is that people who work like true artists all have the same 3 qualities. Go with the challenge, fully accept the challenges and take pride in themselves. Give the best. A true artist only stops when he's 100% satisfied with his work. Art never wants to be ineffective. And remain persistent. Never, ever, never, ever give up. And always keep a trace of curiosity. What is still possible? And so I want to conclude with the words of Arne Kintze, who says, every day I tell myself this is only the starting point, and I will keep on saying it to myself as long as I live. This is just the beginning. Thank you.